why past lives matter. So thanks for clicking on my video. So if you're here, obviously you've got some level of curiosity about why past lives matter. My name is Anne Goodall. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. I've also been doing timeline therapy and past life regression since 2016. And so if you were wondering to know if you have a past life, if they mattered, stick around and I'm going to share with you on this video what I've learned from working with hundreds of people over the years. So first question, do past lives actually exist? So there'll be a lot of people on the planet who genuinely believe that no, that it's a heap of rubbish, that they don't, that they're just here once and when they die, they die. And if that's you, then probably this is not the video for you, let's be honest, because that's not what this is about. Past lives, in my experience, personal experience and professional experience, yes, they do exist. I mean, personally, I don't know about you, and I'd love to hear about it in the comments, but I think it would be crazy to assume that we literally came here once, you know, that the whole existence of you is about, you know, somewhere, it can literally be anything from, you know, 2 days to like usually, you know, 80 years. No, past lives do exist. And basically the question is, how do I know that? I know that because when I was born, we are meant to forget. Yeah, when we come in with what's considered a level of amnesia. Now, not everybody forgets everything. In fact, lots of times, young kids, young babies actually remember things, but it's just sometimes parents say, oh, you know, don't be silly. So sometimes you might have a kid and they'll talk about, oh, you know, my other mom used to do this, or, you know, when I lived in Japan, or when I lived in wherever. And so if they come into a family, or if they come into parents that are not aware or not kind of, you know, up on the idea of past lives, then very often those things are, oh, you know, it's just, the child's just, you know, this a dream, or they must have seen it or whatever. So a lot of times parents actually diss when a kid speaks like that. But the truth is that child literally is remembering remnants of its past life. For me personally, I was born in Ireland. I was born in an orphanage, and you know, one of my earliest memories is when I was adopted out by my family, and I was probably, you know, I definitely wasn't going to school, so I would have been under the age of 5. And I remember being in an event with my mum and really getting upset and realizing in that moment that I was older than she was. I mean, what 4-year-old thinks, oh my God, I'm actually older than my parents? You know, and if you're watching this, maybe you too, and I'd love to hear it in the comments, have strange or unusual experiences. But for me, I think I always knew I was brought up in Catholic Ireland, and I always thought, I don't know, there's something missing, there's something that everyone's not getting. I couldn't literally put my finger on it. I was about the age of 11, and it was the first time, you know, remember rural Ireland, Catholic Ireland, you know, reincarnation wasn't even a word that was literally in the Irish dictionary. And then I remember seeing something on TV and I was like, yes, that's it. That's the bit I've been missing. That's it. Yes, we have been here before. But I never ever thought that I would be doing it in terms of professional life. But, you know, fast forward, you know, 20 odd years after that, and I'm in clinic doing what's called, one of the processes I do called timeline therapy. So let me share a story with you today of one of the many, many, many parts of many clients I've taken down the timeline. So I don't normally deal with young children because, well, it's more difficult to kind of get the conversation out and to understand what's happening. But I had worked with this woman and I'd worked with her twin sister. And after we'd done the work together, she came to me and she said her child at the time was probably in the year 1, give or take, year 2. So in other words, she would be 6/7, yeah, 5, 6, 7, something very, very young. And she said, look, I don't know what's after happening, but the school is calling every time it rains. She's actually like calling and saying that she actually wants to come home. And so this is becoming a real problem because if you know Australia, sometimes we've got drought and then sometimes we've got the rainy season. So if you've got a child who wants to come home every time it rains and it's the rainy season, you've got a major problem on your hands. She said, please help. I'm desperate. I need some help. So I was like, okay, I don't normally deal with children, but it's like, okay, I'll do what I can do. So I literally brought this little girl in, and because, you know, with children, you can't ask the same questions you would with an adult, I get them to draw. So when it was raining, I wanted to know what memory was actually reigniting, what was actually happening in her head. And me and her mom just sat there in absolute awe as this little girl sat down and she drew this massive, like on a whiteboard, this massive wave, like a huge wave. And then she drew this image of this little girl, and this little girl was holding on to balloons. I still get goosebumps when I think about this. And Mum and I were looking at each other and was like, and we knew the answer to this question, was like, who is that? And she goes, that's me. And it was like, what happened? And she said, the big waves came. And it was just like, now, think about this for a second. This child did not know she was coming in to do timeline therapy. She didn't know about past life. She did not know about past life regression. But what was happening was that every time it was rain, it was literally flickering this memory, rain associated with a big, huge wave. And then she started having panic attacks. She was too young to have, you could say, oh, maybe she saw that on TV. But, how did she have this image in her head of her literally being taken up with a host of balloons? Not possible. So how do I know that that was it? Like, yes, could she have watched a movie? Yes, she could have watched a movie, but highly unlikely that would have such a massive, massive impact that every time it would rain, that she would literally want to be taken home. So we did what we did. I went in and I did the process, what I would do with timeline therapy. And with Australia, as I said, sometimes it's really rainy, sometimes it's not. So as it turned out, towards the end of the session, it was like we didn't have that much rain afterwards. And I was like, I wish I knew, I wish I actually knew if this had the same impact as I hope it had. Anyway, probably a year later, I got a phone call from Mum. And Mum said, guess what? We've been in Fiji. I was like, oh, that's cool. I hope you had a good holiday. She goes, no, I'm not ringing you to tell you about the good holiday. I'm ringing you to tell you that we've been in Fiji and it's been flooding. I was like, oh, penny dropped. It's flooding. And guess what? Her little girl, no issue whatsoever. So the question is, do past lives matter? And the answer is yes and no. You see, sometimes people can get so caught up in focusing on their past life that they're actually missing out on their current life. Yeah, so you don't want to become so much so that, and you don't want to actually be blaming everything on your past life. Yeah, you don't want to think, oh, well, in my past life, I was ill-treated by men, so I have a real difficulty having a relationship with a man in this lifetime. Well, if that is the case, and I'm not doubting that it could be, then that's the opportunity to heal that in this lifetime. So it's not, I don't want past lives, and I suggest you don't allow this to happen. Don't allow past lives to be something that can actually, give you an excuse for not healing. If anything, see past lives as something that if something comes up and said, oh, look, this happened in my past life, and then you're struggling with something in this life, very often, in fact, most times, it is very easy to see what's actually going on. It's like, oh, that happened. So you still have that residue, you still have that memory, just like that little girl, you still have those thoughts somewhere at a deeper level. And the whole idea is you go in and you actually heal the past. So sometimes the question is, well, how do I know? Like, how do I know what I need to heal? How do I know what happened in the past? If I can't access them, I can't go on the computer and go, oh, okay. Well, what you will most likely find is there will be patterns. There is patterns in everybody's life, yeah, everybody's life. So there'll be certain things, it happens over and over again. It can happen with your neighbor, then it can happen with your husband, or it can happen with your kid. And it's the same thing, and sometimes this is really easy to see. If you've got a friend, or maybe it's you, and you've had a boyfriend, and then he's like the past boyfriend, and he's like the past boyfriend, he's like the past boyfriend again. So it's like the person is having the very same, experience with just different people. To me, that is just simply a soul contract that if you don't get with the first person, it happens second person. It doesn't get in the second person, it happens with third person. It keeps happening. And sometimes this does go back to something that happened in a past life. So from that perspective, yes, past lives do matter because potentially it's something that happened long before. But should you allow something that happened in the past to then mean that you're going to keep having the same patterns in this life? And my answer would be no. Absolutely not. If you find out something, then you're like, all right, okay, that means that this time, this is the idea that you're actually going to heal whatever it is. Because in my experience, if it keeps happening over and over and over in this life, guess what? It's not just about past lives. You've got to think about future lives. So if you don't actually master whatever it is that you need to master, then you're going to keep repeating the patterns. So again, it's like past lives are really good. It's almost like having an encyclopedia. Yeah, it's almost like having this you know, book that you kind of look back on, you go, oh yes, that explains that explains this, that explains that. That's cool. And it's great to have explanation, but that doesn't change anything. It just means that now that is actually up for healing. So why past lives matter? Past lives matter because they do impact what is actually happening in this current life. That's really the goal does. But at saying that, you don't want to just allow that to be like a get out of jail card, like keep you stuck because, oh, that's just how it is because that happened in past life. To me, that is like, oh, okay, that's just now, okay, this is actually what I need to learn. This is actually what I need to master. So do they matter? They do, but it's not something that I would suggest you get completely obsessed with or get so taken into your past life that you actually miss out on the current life. Because current life, at the end of the day, really is all about soul contracts. And so in one of my next videos, I'm going to be talking about what actually soul contracts are. So I've got a huge favor to ask you. It's not really that huge. My favor is, if you enjoyed this video, I am just relatively new, I'm not relatively new in terms of the space of therapy, but I'm relatively new starting up a YouTube channel. So I would really appreciate if you like this video, if you post a comment, if you subscribe, and if you can share. If you can do any one of those, that's awesome. If you can do all of them, that's absolutely incredible. And if you post a comment, I would absolutely 100% get back to you. So I look forward to maybe meeting you sometime in the past, in the future. Remember, past lives, they count. Just don't get stuck there and make the most of what this life is. See you on the next video.